Hello and welcome to the England Pod Lionesses edition. This is everything you need to know ahead of England's opening game of Euro 2025 against France, which kicks off on Saturday at 8 p.m. UK time in Zurich. David Walker and Kathryn, women's football reporter for The Telegraph, are with me. We're kicked off now, and Kathryn, I guess the big thing to focus on in terms of England is how close do we think the starting 11 will be to the one that started against Jamaica in their final warm-up game?
I think it will be the same team. I just don't know if Lauren James is going to be fit enough to start that first game. I think Sarina Wiegman would like to play her if she was, and I think a lot of people would like to see her in the team. But I wonder if they might just wait until that Netherlands game, bring her off the bench against France, because she's only played about 40 minutes since April. It'd be a lot for her to start that opening game, and I think that's probably always been maybe the plan. So I imagine it will be the team that started against Jamaica, and then you've got the likes of Lauren James and Aggie Beether-Jones to bring on. And I think that team that started, in that friendly did pretty well and have probably earned the right to start that first game against France.
Let's run through the starting 11. Obviously, Hannah Hampton in goal. The back four of Lucy Bronze, Leah Williamson, Alex Greenwood, and Jess Carter was preferred at left back to Niamh Charles. And then we had Keira Walsh, Georgia Stanway, Ella Toone, and then we had Lesia Russo up top, Lauren Hemp, and Beth Mead. We all become amateur doctors, don't we, Dave? I think we assess things. And for me, personally, I would be a bit uneasy, actually, with Lauren James starting, because Kathryn said there, she's not had a lot of minutes. And I don't know, I guess it's always like, if something happens, you think, why did you start her? And then, obviously, if England start badly, it's, why didn't you start her? It's one of one of them, you could say.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, we talked about it on the last episode. Like, England, They can't afford to start slowly, and I saw Lesia Russo talking about this as well. I think the players are very aware that it's a big game first up against France, and we've got to hit the ground running, and we don't want to lose this. But that said, we've got good. The players you just run through there are good players and good enough to win this match. And to have a player like Lauren James to come off the bench is obviously a really good thing. And they have, she hasn't played much football. Georgia Stanway hasn't played much football either. She'll probably start. But I think it's fine to keep one player at least back off the bench who you might otherwise start. And there are, 2 more group games that she will be able to start if she's fit enough. So I don't think it's a massive issue. I'm just quite excited to see the impact that she does make, though, Lauren James, whether she starts or not, because she is being talked about from what I haven't watched a huge amount of her, but I remember, I've seen her obviously in flashes, in the World Cup last time. I know she was suspended for part of that tournament, but when she did play, she looked like one of England's best players. And she's talked about by her teammates as this kind of almost unique player. It does things that other players can't, in our squad and in the women's game. So it's exciting to have a player of her quality in the squad. Whether she starts, we'll see. But I also think for this game, it's quite an exciting prospect. You can look at it two ways. You can be a bit nervous that we've got France straight away, but we are ranked higher than France. We have got a better record than France. France have never reached a major final, and it's in major tournaments, when you have these big games in the first game, it's more exciting than if we were playing someone who we were definitely expected to beat and were much lower ranked, and maybe we win 2-0 when we thought we might win 5-0 or whatever. But big, meaty encounter against France first up. Me, Ali and George will be watching it in Sheffield after the boys do their live show up in Sheffield. They're not the Top 20 live show. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. There should be a real sense of occasion around it, I think.
No, I agree. And I think, Kathryn, it's almost like we'll know, almost like in the first sort of 10, 20 minutes, almost how far England could go in this tournament, you feel? Like, is it going to be a kind of an awful exit early on, or is it going to be like, oh, actually, no, we're here and they're really intense, and because I think it is the hardest game up first, isn't it? Even in a hard group.
It is, but the thing with opening games are, I just remember the last two tournaments, they're always cagey, and even in the Euros in 2022 when they played Austria, I don't think anyone left that stadium convinced that England were going to win, because it was a very narrow victory, that sort of strange goal that Beth Mead scored. And it did kind of feel like not that they were hanging on, but it was getting a little bit nervy towards the end, that they were just trying to see out the game. And then they obviously played Norway next, and we were kind of thinking, oh, this feels like the toughest game. And then suddenly they turned up and scored 8 goals. And even in the World Cup, obviously there was a few games where it was a little bit closer, but that first game against Haiti, they were expected to win comfortably. Ended up winning through a penalty, and it was all a little bit nervy, and Mary Earps made a really good save at the end, and we were all sort of thinking, can they really go all the way to the final? And then they did. So I don't know what to expect from the France game, because history kind of tells us that it will be quite cagey and it could be really, really close, and maybe both teams will just want to figure each other out. But equally, it could go the opposite way, where England kind of want to come out, lay a marker down early on, want to press really high and be intense, as you say, and kind of get off to that perfect start and take the pressure off themselves a little bit. Because if you win that first game, it goes such a long way to, for the rest of the group. It sets the tone, especially going into that game against the Netherlands, because it sounds like a really obvious thing to say, but what you don't want to do is lose that first game and then have to win against the Netherlands, like putting all the pressure on yourself, to have to go and get a result. So
against a Netherlands team that probably have beaten Wales.
As you would expect, that's the thing.
We'll see. I didn't trust the Norwegians. I think, I don't know, the Red Wall will be there in good number. You never know.
Finland beating Iceland obviously last night was not expected, and I know Iceland ended up getting that red card, which did seem to change things. But even Switzerland taking a lead against Norway, it sort of seemed like for a while they might go on to get a result. So. I guess obviously Wales, a lot of people are writing them off, but they could definitely cause a shock. But yeah, I do think my gut says it will be a really cagey game against France. But I'd love it to be the opposite and it be like 4-3 or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that that is tournament football. Me, George, and Ellie spent a long time last summer talking about the men's team, and there was all the complaints about the style of play, about playing players out of position and who's going to play midfield and all that sort of stuff. And after every game, we were on the floor pretty much after every game going, this is awful, like 0-0 draws and, struggling to beat teams, squeaking through in the last minute. But then they got all the way to the final, and you sort of forget all that stuff. So we're talking about England needing to, saying they can't work their way into the tournament. And in a way, that is true because they've got 2 big games up first. But on the other hand, it sort of doesn't matter how well they play. That as long as they get the job done, nobody will care if they get to the final and they haven't played very exciting football or the games have been close or whatever. And you were saying the other day, Robyn, we don't expect this tournament to have games where teams are going to win 8-0 or, maybe they will, but, it seems like the standard overall is rising. So, that's the way. I think we'd all take a cagey 1-0 win, wouldn't we, right now?
Totally. No, I totally agree. We need a result over a performance, don't we? I think that's the main thing. But so let's all make a pact. Let's try not to overreact when England maybe stink up the place, but win. Okay, it's difficult, isn't it? After watching it, just to mark your card. The big news will be the lineup. So we're waiting to see if Lauren James will start. And we are very grateful to FOTMob for sponsoring us for the duration of the tournament. And we'll go through our predictions. One of us has done a little bit better than the others. Euros prediction game on the FOTMob app. You can build your Lionesses 11 as well for the game against France using the FOTMob lineup selector. To download the FOTMob app, just head to the link in the show notes. So France, they are very much in the Norway bracket, I think, aren't they? Sort of on paper, wow, what a team. But Kathryn, they've not turned up in a tournament, and again, I think everyone's saying like, when are they going to? Hopefully not this time. But you just think, look at the players they have, and they've really underperformed, haven't they, for a nation of their stature.
They have, and it's really interesting the build up with France as well, because they always have to have like some sort of stuff going on with the team and the manager. And going back to 2022, it was Corinne Diacre that was manager, and I remember she was kind of not the most popular, and had dropped.
Wasn't the warmest of characters, players. Was she?
No, yeah, she didn't. It really interestingly, some players did like her. I remember Hawa Sissoko talked really, really positively about her. Other players couldn't stand her. And you could kind of tell, on the pitch when they played. They still got to the semi-final, but she's obviously somebody that kind of split opinion. And then, you'll probably get the pronunciation of his name right more than me, but Laurent Bonadé,
possibly. Yeah, not the game I'm doing, so not in my brain's full. So
I just assume Robyn will always know the pronunciations of every manager to exist. But no, he's obviously come in and done kind of a similar thing. He's dropped Wendy Renard, he's dropped Kenza Dali, he's dropped Les Sommers. So it's almost similar. But I half wonder whether that might work this time, in their favour. It felt like that squad needed to kind of move on from that generation, potentially. And you look at the likes of Sandy Baltimore, Katoto, Diani, those forwards, they've got so much talent. Clara Matteo, who I might get this wrong, but I think she was the top scorer in France, or certainly, one of the top scorers in France, playing for Paris FC. Who maybe people don't know much about, but interestingly, Georgia Stanway picked her out as a player to watch at the England Media Day. So they've got a lot of talent, and they should be going through this group, really, when you look at the team on paper. But as we say, it's not guaranteed for any team in the group, but it just feels like they've never managed to do it. They failed, obviously, at the Olympics last year, which was their home tournament, which was, they'd kind of almost... the second Nations League game against England, it was almost like they said, well, we kind of sacrificed this game a little bit because we're preparing for the Olympics, without really kind of saying that. And then they kind of bombed at the Olympics, and they didn't really turn up in their home World Cup in 2019. So you sort of feel like surely eventually they're going to turn up and it's going to click and they're going to, kind of get somewhere. But I don't know, for whatever reason, they've just not managed to make it work.
It's almost a home tournament for them. Not far from home for this one, so they should have some travelling fans at least.
You say that, but apparently, I think that they were saying yesterday only Germany and maybe it's Germany and Swiss, but I think England fans, the tickets that they've sold, I think they've only been beaten by Germany and obviously the home country. I don't think France have sold more tickets than England. France might have been sort of next on the list, but
yeah.
They don't always
that's good for us.
travel in numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just looking at their recent form, actually. They come into the tournament in good form. They've won, they've played 8 games in 2025. They've won them all, beating Norway, Iceland, Switzerland in the Nations League. And then they beat Belgium 5-0, 20th of June. And then on the 27th, they did what England didn't and had a friendly against slightly more established opposition in Brazil and beat them 3-2. So, they're a team who will come into it in that respect in confident form, I guess.
I think I'm kind of fascinated by them. It's difficult to kind of take an objective opinion, obviously, wanting the Lionesses to do well. But it does seem like, as you mentioned there, Kathryn, like it's the sort of almost lack of interest in this team that's kind of full of stars. And you just wonder how much is it the coach? Because Hervé Renard as well, he was a big name, but he seemed a bit disinterested, He's always had that long distance, sort of, chiseled middle distance stare with his white shirts. And I don't know much about the new coach, but it'll be interesting to see if he can have the impact, dropping the players, trying something a bit different, dropping the big players, we should say. Particularly big player in Wendy Renard. Just the sheer height is going to be missed, surely, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think just her presence. I mean, I don't know the inside the dynamics of the French squad, and I assumed she was a popular figure in terms of a leader in that dressing room and somebody that, carried the team and had so much experience. To kind of lose that, it will have an impact. But they have got other players to step up. But yeah, in terms of that defence, she was just such, as you say, such a huge presence, such a threat from set pieces. And I remember kind of, like in previous tournaments, just trying to get the corners in and avoid her, just get the ball anywhere in the box that's not Wendy Renard's head, which was very difficult to do when she is so tall. Um, but I wonder if it could, whether it could just go the other way, and that the players that are in the squad feel kind of that responsibility to go and, kind of carry, maybe it was the right time for Wendy Renard to kind of not step aside because it wasn't her decision, but maybe France needed to move on from herself and Les Sommer, that sort of similar generation, and kind of give the likes of, Diani, Katoto, that sort of the more younger generation a chance to kind of go and do what, the previous one never quite managed to do.
I think that's the one thing I was a bit concerned about in terms of England, and we didn't really discuss it in the Jamaica game. So the goal they scored that was ruled out VAR, England consistently have not looked great defensively from set pieces. Wendy Renard not being there is a good thing. But we don't have Millie Bright who heads away everything. So I think that's something that I'm just a little bit concerned about.
Yeah, I think the presence of Mary Earps as well, as that was the one area where I thought Mary Earps commanding her box maybe had an advantage over Hannah Hampton, where this is something that Hampton's got to maybe work on a little bit. Just that kind of, I'm going to come out and claim this corner, I'm going to really own this penalty area, and I'm going to sort of, dominate it a little bit. Earps kind of had that fear factor, and sometimes you don't always get that from Hampton. And taking Millie Bright out the team, you're looking at, Williamson being brave and going and winning those balls in the box. Alex Greenwood, who's obviously not as tall as Millie Bright and not maybe quite as big, but still, very physically strong. And Jess Carter, another one, she's quite a, robust player that can, you're looking at to kind of go and win those balls in the box.
That's one thing we've not really talked about in any of the pods we've done leading up to this tournament is the central defence, really. We've talked about the absence of Millie Bright, but having Leah Williamson there and Greenwood next to her. But Williamson wasn't at the World Cup, right? She was injured, and she has just won the Champions League with Arsenal. And it does feel that, if I'm right to say this, that if England are going to do well, she's going to play well. Like, she's going to have to be the leader and, play really well in the heart of the defence. But I mean, how confident are you in that partnership in Williamson and Greenwood going into this tournament, Kathryn?
In terms of the two of them together, I think they're two of the best centre backs, in the world. But they've just hardly played together as a pairing. It doesn't feel like we've really seen them much together for England. So I actually think they're still building that kind of partnership. They're also quite similar in a lot of ways in that they like to play through the lines, play out from the back. Both really, really good with the ball at their feet. And that was always the kind of, and I think that's why Alex Greenwood, when Leah Williamson and Millie Bright were both fit, found it really difficult to get into the team in that centre-back role, because it felt like Williamson and Bright were almost, you either played Greenwood and Bright or you played Williamson and Bright to kind of have that balance between sort of aerial strength and physicality, and then someone that can kind of put the ball down and play out from the back. And I think that's the only concern, is that are they too similar, and have we got one of them that's going to, be that physical presence? However, individually they're both brilliant, and I don't think you could ask for, two better centre backs to have in your team. It's just, hoping that relationship kind of develops as the tournament goes on. And they're both really experienced, so you imagine it should. And I think maybe Leah Williamson is going to have to be that kind of player that does maybe some of the stuff Millie Bright used to do. Just as the captain, I think sometimes you've got to take that kind of responsibility on and sort of, go and win every ball and, kind of, dominate the back line, which, we know that she can do. And I think it helps that, she ended the season so strongly with Arsenal. In that Champions League final, she was brilliant. I think it was one of the best games I've seen her play. Obviously, Alex Greenwood's been out for a long time and is still probably getting back to fitness, which is a little bit of a concern. But again, her vision and her ability on the ball is brilliant. So it's just that kind of aerial, what we were maybe talking about in terms of set pieces, that kind of someone that's going to go and just win every header, that's maybe where I'm slightly concerned.
Right, okay, because we are very grateful for FOTMob, the prediction league. I don't really want to do it, but do you want to make a prediction for the England-France game, Dave?
I'm gonna back England. I'm gonna go for a narrow win. I think you might be right, Kathryn. It could be a cagey one, but I think England will win 2-1.
Yeah, I'm on the fence, so I've gone with a 1-1 draw.
I'm going to go for a 1-0 England win,
Okay.
an unconvincing one, and we might lose our minds, but somehow it's going to be another dodgy, slightly weird goal. I think 1-0. Dave, so the prediction league is up and running.
It is. We should
yes.
also do Netherlands versus Wales as well while we're here. And on the FOTMob predictor, there are win probabilities to help guide you. And the Netherlands have got a 78% chance of winning this game, according to FOTMob. Wales, just 8%.
Stick that on the dressing room wall. Yeah?
Print off the screenshot.
Download the FOTMob app.
Yeah.
Should we doing that as well?
Yeah.
I'm commentating on this one. Can I opt out? I mean, can I play the BBC
You're going to
card?
lose points in the league if you do that.
Okay. I will say. I'll say 2-1 Netherlands. I think Wales will have a moment, though. I think they will score, and it will be joyous. But
I've gone 3-1 Netherlands. Kathryn?
I was torn between both scorelines in terms of I originally was thinking 2-1, and then I thought, will Wales press forward and then Netherlands hit them on the break? So I've also gone with 3-1. Again, I do think Wales will get a goal. I really enjoyed how Rhian Wilkinson said that after this tournament, everyone will be looking at Wales on a map, as if it was just sort of like as if people kind of don't know where Wales is. It was like the sort of first thing that you would do when you're watching them is like, where is this country on a map?
Yeah.
But I kind of understood the sentiment that maybe people are just sort of writing them off. But that just kind of tickled me.
I saw her interview at half time of the game that you were commentating on last night, Robyn, and there were like players running around in the background when she was chatting to the BBC reporter. So it looks like they're having some fun in the camp, at least, which is good for them. But in terms of the predictions league, you can still join it. Even though you might have missed the first two games, all you got to do is get a couple of bang-on results and you'll be right up there. We've got a leader in the England Pod Predictions League with Jack Gibson, who is currently sat atop. Well, actually, I think there's a 5-way tie actually for the lead at the moment. So you've got Jack Gibson, Anthony Coffey Selorm Wartsum, L. Lawrence, Ed Smith, and Bob Turnbull have all managed to get a result and scoreline bang on. So you get 3 points if you get the scoreline correct, and you get an extra point if you just get the result the right way. So they've all managed to do that so far. Kathryn, of the three of us, you're the only one so far who's managed to get a correct result. None of us have got a correct scoreline yet, but you did predict that Norway would beat Switzerland, but you went 2-0. None of us went for the Finns to beat Iceland. But we go again. It's all to play for. Plenty of games left.
This is the embryonic table, Dave, isn't it?
Exactly.
Very much.
Yeah.
In its infancy. If you want to get on board with us, download the FOTMob app, and all the links you need are in the show notes. Thank you very much for joining us. Once again, this is the England Pod, all England all the time, and come on the Lionesses.